Let's go.
Hey, let's go, baby. That's awesome.
Welcome to the Renewing the Mind podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Sanchez. Joined with me, my dad, Dr. Raul Sanchez. How you doing, Dad?
I'm feeling like a professional, baby. Like back in the day,
I'm telling
NDSU,
you.
when we were in the locker room getting ready, getting pumped. It's like, how you feeling, baby? Let's go. Let's do this, right? Championship mindset. Here's the idea. Like you show up and play, you stay. All of a sudden, if you stay, you become a champion. Once a champion, always a champion, baby. Here we go. NDSU Bison in the house. Let's go.
And there's the ring kiss.
Let's do it.
This podcast, we teach you how to renew your perspective, move towards uncertainty, and find what's awesome about that in every situation.
What?
Just want to let you know there's two times to be great, when you feel like it and when you don't.
Amen.
As you can see, we got a new look. We got a new software. We got a new intro.
Yes.
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 We're live.
Let's do this. This is awesome.
I'm telling you.
Feeling like a pro, you know?
Hey, that kind of felt like we were real, like real podcasters.
Yeah. This is like back in the day in high school when you had the gloves and the towel and the marker, you know, back in high school.
The national anthem was playing. You started kind of bouncing a little bit.
Yep. I put some tape on the back of my Nikes and I wrote in big red because we were at North Iowa's red. I put bye-bye. Let's go, baby.
Yeah.
Peace out.
And then the band starts playing. That's
correct, baby. Let's go.
All right. This is a show we've been talking about as soon as Simone Biles removed herself from competition. You texted me. I screenshotted it. I texted you. I got 2 or 3 text messages. Josh Potter said, let's talk about it on the podcast. You've been asked numerous times what you think of it. And so the whole concept is mental health, physical health, what's more important as an athlete. We saw, for those of you who don't know, you might live under a rock, but Simone Biles removed herself from competition for team gymnastics.
USA team gymnastics.
Yep. And came out because she quoted by saying, no, mentals aren't there. And then she's since then quoted, this stuff was really tough. I felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders, all that stuff. So what we want to do is we want to talk about that, talk about the mental aspect. You've been asked questions. I've been getting questions. And then just how important that mental aspect that maybe some people don't even really talk about.
Yeah. So the big question, and people will stop me and just be like, hey, quick question. So Simone Biles, like, what's your take? Is it she doesn't have the resilience? Is this a resilience issue? Or like, is this like an emotional meltdown or emotional crack, or what's the deal? And I quickly just say there's 3 big reasons, but tune in to Tuesday night to the podcast, baby. Here we go. Right. So here's the issue. There's really 3 levels. But before I say that, like, this isn't just Simone Biles. These are big athletes. Like, you've had pro NFL players step out because of anxiety. Brandon Marshall, who's got I Am Athlete podcast, talks about his anxiety and the medication and the mental health push. The more people we talk about it, the more I can look around and be like, dude, they're just like me. Okay. So it's not just Simone, but she's just the latest and the greatest because she's the GOAT. But also another person is Naomi Osaka, the number 1 ranked tennis player who used to, I don't know where she's ranked currently, but she, won 5 Grand Slams. And she kind of took the world by storm. She hits powerful, man, just like such just power. And all of a sudden, she just didn't feel it at Wimbledon. And some of her, I know her story. I've been following her for all along. Our daughter Valencia plays tennis. I've been following her a little bit. And just from the very beginning, so she got broke a little bit when people booed her after she beat. Who did she beat? One of the world famous tennis players. I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but. She's a twin sister, or not twin, but she's the younger sister.
Venus or Serena?
Serena. Sorry. I kept thinking Vanessa, but so Serena. Okay, she beat Serena Williams and got booed. Yep. And that kind of cracked her a little bit because, like, how can you be a champion and not be liked? And so that put a crack really deep down into probably some connected trauma to childhood or something. But I'm going to talk a little bit about Naomi because it's the same thing, but we'll circle back to her. But right now we're going to focus on Simone, okay? But both people, all of us, have three levels. Okay. Level 1, our immune system battles disease. That's the first line of defense. So all our energy, all our focus, all our army, like the white blood cells, we're going to fight disease. If there's no disease, number 2, our bodies are going to fight stress. And there's two types of main stress. Okay. There's the physiological stress, or we call real stress. Okay. Like an injury, a physical injury. And then the second type would be perceived stress or imagined. So it's real and imagined stress. And there's two levels there. And then the third thing, and this is where the mental toughness comes in. This is like, I practice this, 10,000 times. Like I just got to step up and do it. Like this is what we talk about. There's 2 times to be great, when you feel like it and when you don't. So what Simone's dealing with, what Naomi's dealing with, is deeper than just a feeling, because otherwise they can shake it, because they're at that level for a reason. Okay. Yep. So those are the 3 levels. Okay. Disease, stress, and then the mentals or resilience. And that's where we stake our claim on resilience. Okay. Yep. All right. So if you take a look at disease wasn't her issue, obviously. Okay. So it's definitely stress. Let's break down her 2 types of stress. Her number 1 physical stress is trauma. So the number 1 answer I would give you, if you said, hey, why did she quit? And is it okay to quit? Under the circumstance of trauma, absolutely. Because her body feels like she's in a war that she's losing, and going further, she would physically hurt herself. Like she'd snap a leg, or she'd get a concussion. And that's what Simone knows. Like she's used to jumping and falling in a mat and all those, foam balls when you take our kids to the gymnastics pit. And she knows, like, dude, if I land on the ground, I'll literally get wrecked. Then she also knows if she gets a 0 or something super low, she's going to knock her team out of contention. So she opted out, and that's the right thing to do when we're battling trauma. Okay. So what's her trauma? Obviously you all know, she's come out publicly that she was sexually abused by her team doctor. So she's a sexual abuse victim, and now she's worked through it. So she's a survivor, and she's done well on the mat. So now she's a thriver. Right. So the problem with what I see here, though, is everybody else who came out, they're mostly retired, and they're on the sidelines talking.
She's the only one still competing.
Right. At that level still. And still is the GOAT, And so what happened to her is, and a lot of us, when we get injured mentally, it's a mental injury, by the way, just like she broke a leg, this is a mental injury. And so her mental injury was compartmentalized, like it's all wrapped up, like it's a knee brace or something underneath the pads. You can't see it. And so you might have an idea like, okay, so I just watched her tonight. She just went out and got a bronze medal. And the commentators who go, I saw her on the floor today, and you look in her eyes and she's back. She doesn't have that fear thing that's penetrating through her eyes. And those are just commentators talking about what they see. And that's kind of what they saw. Okay.
I think it's even more crazy. She stepped out and came back.
Yes. And that's the win. She's worked through it. Like, that's an amazing win. I don't know if she's got a sports psychologist there on the team, or she's got somebody helping her through it.
They panned to someone that was there.
Yeah. Okay. So somebody's helping her work through that trauma, because not only do you have to compartmentalize it, like hold it together, but okay, once she gets it together and she just nails a great practice, she goes to dinner, and then she's got a PR meeting. So now somebody's going to talk to her, and they unravel her, because they'll say, hey, do you ever think about the trauma as you're out there on the, and then she's got to open up that question. So she's opened up all these boxes that she keeps closing them, and people open them, and she closes them, people open them. And so it's very difficult for her to juggle those pieces. Okay. So that's the trauma. And if we just focus on the trauma for a second, what's the main thing? Like, people sometimes just say, yeah, but man, come on. Like, when I was a kid, I got spanked with, a wire hanger, or, when I was a kid, like, my dad would smack me across the face, like, you got to get over it. Dude, those are physical. Like, the pain's emotional sometimes with that, but we're really talking about a physical issue. Like, when a doctor who, like, you trust, and you're on a table, I mean, who knows? Like, just think about that. It's crazy. The levels of abuse, the levels of trauma there. So let's talk about that. So there's a thing called the vagus nerve. I know I'm going quick because I want to get through this fast, and then we'll talk about it. But there's a vagus nerve, okay? And the vagus nerve is one of the 10 cranial nerves that connect literally to your skull, and it come down all the way down to the middle of your gut. So it literally connects your big brain. We've talked about 100 billion neurons, right? A billion neurons, and then the small gut, the small brain in the stomach, 100 million neurons. So the vagus nerve travels all the way down through there, and it communicates with every single organ. Think about that. It communicates with every single organ. So little thing feels off, and you might just be like, dude, I think I got to poop. All right. There we go. Guts. Yeah. Right. Bubble guts. We can't have a Sanchez talk without talking about that. Right.
There it is.
Everybody knows this is like, y'all always talk about that. They're like, well, come on, man. Hot sauce, jalapenos, like, Dagas tacos, right?
Hey, they smack today.
Yeah, that's good. Sorry. Tacos always get me off topic.
Okay, go.
Tuesday, bro. Taco
Vegas
Tuesday.
nerve, go.
Okay, so the vagus nerve goes all the way up and down, communicates with every one of your organs. Okay, here's the cool thing: the vagus nerve has a pulse. It has like a tone, almost like musicians would hear it if you hit something and it's like ding. Okay, it resonates with the tone. So a high tone resonates to your heart that everything is chill. So it slows down your heart rate and slows down your blood pressure. Okay. A low tone, it means that like the heart says, uh-oh, we're in trouble. So it turns on the fight and flight. Okay. So the stress hormone. So the vagus nerve is something that's really, really important because it manages our stress and it helps us or turns on rest and digest. However, if you're in a bunch of stress, once that stress tone is turned on, it takes a lot of rest and digest to turn it off. So in Simone's case, like she's got this off, on, off, on, off, on. Let's talk about trauma. Let's talk about your gymnastics, right? And then she goes out and tries it, and then things aren't right there, right? So that's the emotional side. Here's the physiological side. This is really cool, really cool. So the sympathetic nervous system, you sympathize, right, with emotions, and so that makes you run. So you're going to go take off and hide. So fight or flight. Okay. The parasympathetic, we've talked about this before on a podcast. That's the parachute. Think about the parachute. Like a race car takes off, the parachute opens up, the car slows down. So parasympathetic is rest and digest. Okay. If you can't rest and digest, you don't heal from emotional stress or physical stress. So you're carrying it on to the next load. You're carrying it onto the next load. You're carrying it onto the next load. So eventually at some point, you're going to feel like you're under so much pressure, you're going to crack. Okay.
Yep.
And that's what happens to her. But the vagus nerve, what happens to it when it's not going really well, it has this system where it can cause the twisties. Okay. So for all these gymnasts are talking about the twisties, and when they jump up and turn, she can't orient. And if you slow mode, like when that day she jumped, I don't remember where she was from. I think it was the vault. Her eyes looked like she saw a ghost, like she was a little kid on a roller coaster. Her eyes were like panicked and looking around, and you never see that in a gymnast, right? They're focused. They grab the floor and they just orient fast. She didn't have that. So that's called orthostatic hypotension. Okay. What does that mean? That means that the blood pressure is too low. And when somebody goes from sitting to standing or lying to sitting, any of those movements from that, you change a plane. Okay. What happens to you is your blood pressure is too low. It doesn't rise fast enough. So you have dizziness, you have clumsiness. Yeah. People talk about headaches. They talk about like their mind not working right. And the worst part,
Alicia had a couple of times.
Yeah, a lot of people do. I mean, I see a lot of people with the vasovagal nerve syndrome where they faint a lot. Thankfully, she didn't faint, but she was clumsy and she couldn't orient. So they're calling that the twisties, right? That's a medical issue. If you just hear this, and actually, just to be honest, I defriended some coaches and stuff because they're going on a rant about, Simone's coaches aren't resilient or they're not tough. Like they need to hire a mental toughness coach. Like this is a crock of crap. We're putting our kids in front of the TV to watch these heroes and they crack. I'm like, dude, yeah, I'm not even gonna say it. So I just delete them, defriend them, whatever. Because I'm not going to follow that kind of stuff. Like, dude, if you don't know what's going on, chill out. Right. So if you just look at trauma and you just look at the vagus nerve, she's got the twisty. She shouldn't be doing anything. Okay. But she tried to fight through it. And this is the champ in her. When you saw warm-ups and you saw preliminaries and you saw qualifying, she didn't quite look right. When she hit, she was so scared and it panics her. So she puts her feet down with force and then she'd bounce off the mat 2 or 3 times, but she kept going and she kept trying. And here's where the emotional side is. Okay. So how do you go from sympathetic nervous system, like fighting, like fight or flight? How do you go from there to rest and digest? It's simple. You experience, okay. You process, you express or you share what happened to you, and then you can communicate your safety. Like, okay, good, dude, I was afraid, right? Or man, that dog really freaked me out, or whatever it is. So once you process like that, there's this release. So your vagal tone goes high and your heart can chill out and stop making you panic. Okay. This is why so many people who have anxiety will say, dude, I felt like I had a heart attack. So I went to the doctor's office. They put all the tests through and they say, hey, I think this is mental. And people come to see me and like, I don't even know what to do. Doctors say I'm mental or something. I'm like, it's not mental. It's physical. Actually, it's physiological, but they don't train them. They don't know that stuff. Like that's where I come in. Okay.
Yep.
So if you take a look at just that part of it, it's like, holy buckets, dude. She is amazing, because once somebody gets up and has the twisties, they would normally just check out. But she tried and tried and fought and fought and fought. And then she's like, last time she got scared, she's like, when they interviewed her, she had her mask on and she whispered to her coach, I don't trust myself. And that's it. Like, I can't, dude, if you can't trust your gut, you can't trust your mindset, you can't, I'm done. Right. And so she needs to be applauded because she stepped down. And that is a hero, because you're giving other people the idea that, look, if I'm battling something deeper than gymnastics, right, deeper than football, I should be able to just check out. I should be able to talk to somebody. Now, here's where it gets kind of gray, because if I'm a coach and a kid talks to me and says, hey, I think I'm dealing with some trauma, can I take a couple of days off? How do I know as a coach, like, oh, dude, you just need to be resilient? Or like, okay, this guy had some childhood stuff. Like, that should have been me at NDSU, because like those are the times when I show up to practice and want to try to fight people from the abuse I took as a kid. Okay. Yeah. But that's where a team psychologist comes in, or a performance coach comes in, because they can check in with them. So that's what I did with the Musketeers. I grabbed some of those kids, work them through a real quick model, real quick, teach them that they're not alone and this is normal. And they feel like they're okay, cool. So now I know I just need to check in when I feel this way. Okay. So that's the trauma side, right, of her stress. Now let's focus on the pressure side. Okay. So the first part of the pressure, when you think about that imagine side, this is pressure. Now we could easily say, okay, this is absolutely positively just mindset, because what's pressure? So sometimes people go, I'm under so much pressure. Well, that was like this mindset where like, I'm just getting squashed. I can't carry the pressure. That's not Simone. That's definitely not Naomi. They've tackled the pressure. They spit out the pressure. Before. They've been there before. Like, how do you win 5 Grand Slams? You know, how are you the GOAT, but you can't handle pressure? All of a sudden, people are dumb to even assume that. Okay. It's not pressure, because they have the right mindset. Like, this is an opportunity to shine. This is an opportunity, right? Like Tom Brady says, you know what the best ring in the house is? The next one.
The next one.
Okay. So they know how to handle pressure. So it's not about the pressure. So what happened? And this is where it gets kind of gray. Okay. So on one hand, I want to talk about 30% load. Now I do RAGBRAI, and some of you who don't know RAGBRAI, it's the great ride across Iowa. I didn't do it the last couple of years. I've been busy with family, whatever. But when you ride in a train, the people in the train have a 30% less load. So if Tyler's riding with me and I'm in front of Tyler, I carry the bulk of that. Tyler is 30% free because I'm carrying his stress, because he rides in my draft. Now I know this is going to sound really weird, but it's absolutely true. Like, just take a look at Pippen. Pippen talked all this junk about he just wants to be the guy. Jordan steps down and Pippen cracked. Now I'm not dogging on Pippen, because like, dude, I mean, right? I mean, I get beat in 21. I'm not talking about like these guys suck. I'm just saying this is the load. When you become that lead dog, there's a 30% load that hits you in the face that you didn't really know. And this is why leaders have that edge on them, because they have to have that grind up all the time. Because if they let down a little bit, then that grind just pushes them and hits them, and they don't really know what to do. So now take a look at Simone. The last two Olympics, she's had a lot of people in front of her. Like, she's kind of come under the radar for a little bit. And then you had these big dogs where they took a lot of the issues. Okay, so let's say last Olympics, 2016, she's one of the GOATs. She's one of the tops. And so that at least, like, if I get interviewed, then I go, then Tyler gets interviewed. I can take a break. They don't want me right now, right? Yep. This time around, there's a lot of unknowns. She's the only vet coming back, and she's the GOAT. So she took all the interviews. I mean, let's say 90% of them. And she took a lot of that pressure that she wasn't used to being the lead horse. She got a 30% pressure now taking that load, and she didn't have anybody else to hand it off. And she was quoted, she was saying, it has been a long year. It has been a long Olympics. It has been a long week, because so I promise you, when you're riding and you got that 30% less likely load, you're pedaling and you don't even feel like, you can look down and you're like, I'm going 26 miles an hour. There's no way. This is nuts. And then you get up to the front and you're like, boom, you get hit in the face by the wind. Your legs take this load. It's difficult. So all you can do is think about when can I back out? So you pull off to the right, the train goes in front of you, you fall back in line, and you get this break. I don't think she had the break. Okay, last piece of the imagined pressure. The last piece is this, and unless you're in a marginalized category, it's so hard to understand. And this goes back to the concepts of privilege. But so I'm marginalized because, like, I'm Mexican, but I'm a Mexican American. So when I hang out with Mexican people from Mexico, like a Mexican national, their Spanish is a little slang and I could barely understand them because I can't speak really fluently. They kind of would just shy away and they're like, man, you only half Mexican, or, kind of mess with me. Okay. But I'm American. I was born in Texas. Like I'm a Texan and an Iowan. Right. But people would be like, oh, well, I mean, come on, like you're a Mexican American. How come I'm not a full blown American? I was born in America. I'm like, but you're Mexican. Do you see what I'm saying? Yep. So I don't belong with Mexicans. I don't belong with Americans because I don't look like Americans. So I get marginalized in this small little space in between two pages. So I'm marginalized. I don't think that it's purposeful, but this happens to minorities, and especially happens to women. So Simone all of a sudden is now carrying the weight of all the black women. Like, how does it feel to carry the weight for all the black girls watching you? All the little girls who, can't do this, maybe don't have gymnastics in their community. What would you say to them? And all of a sudden, she's not just going to do gymnastics, and she's not just a repeat champion, and she's not just returning GOAT. Now she's got to carry the weight of all these little black girls who like, wait, what? Okay, that doesn't happen. Maybe I'm wrong. Please send a video if I'm wrong. And I don't know. I haven't seen one. I've never seen like a Caucasian dude from Norway get up and take his gold medal. And everybody's like, how's it feel to carry all the weight of the white men from Norway? That doesn't happen, or from Germany or from France or from Canada. It doesn't happen. And you take a look at what happened to Naomi. She gets to Japan and she's the favorite to win, and she's the home child. And everybody starts saying, how's it feel to represent, all the Japanese women? And then some people were like, how's it feel to represent Haitian women? And she's like, what? And some of her interviews, you see her just kind of like, what? Like, I don't understand. I'm a human. Like I'm an individual. Like, what are you trying to say?
Right. See me as that.
So they put you in this marginalized place where you're the only person now who can represent a whole ethnicity. You're the only person who can represent a whole gender. And it's just heavy. And so if you take a look at those pieces, Simone tapped out, right? Because of trauma that she couldn't control. And she had no time to rest and digest to turn it off. Number two, I think she had a couple sideways pressures that hit her that she didn't really know how to articulate. Didn't have anyone to talk about or talk to. Like how, I'm in the lead and I don't feel like I have a reprieve. And you see this with other athletes. Like we laugh about Marshawn Lynch because we just like him. Like he's my dog. But dude, I'll go to war with that boy anytime, like anywhere. Like, golf, put me on his team. Like paintball, put me on his team. I don't care. Taco eating contest, put me on his team. He just cracks me up. But he would just tap out like, nah, man, just give me the fine. Right. Because some of the questions, and he knows this, some of the questions open up his mind in a certain direction, and he can't stay mentally tough because he can't stay focused. I think this is just an opinion, but I saw Simone after the first time she for qualifying, she got interviewed and somebody said, oh, you'll pull it together. You're the GOAT. And then she says, by the way, can you get beat? And she goes, and then the mic kind of stuck in her face and she kind of smiled and then she stopped smiling and then she just had to give an answer. Right. So she goes, I mean, any given time, I guess, and now she's pondering, she's opened the door. Like, can I be beaten? What would it take for me to get beaten? That's not the right stuff. So it's exactly opposite of what a mental performance coach would do, to let somebody know like, hey, this is just you and the vault, just like at practice, just like at the last meet, instead, this is this huge world where if you fail, you're going to fail all the little black girls. You're going to fail all the little girls in Japan who will look up to you. Like, that's not fair. And it doesn't happen to anyone else. Like, I don't understand that marginalization stuff. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So that's my take. I mean, I think she did the right thing by stepping down. Now, talking real quick about the GOAT, she fought through it. Whatever those mentals were that she had to work through, she just stepped on the vault after taking all these days off, and she nailed it. The super cool thing is because she put so many twists in her stuff, and to make sure her mind or her body wouldn't twist naturally just by habit, by muscle memory, as she's doing her pikes, she grabbed her legs. And normally, like people who are vets, they don't grab their legs anymore. That's kind of a younger thing to do. But she grabbed her legs to pike and then to orient herself to land, and she stuck the landing. It's pretty cool. So absolute GOAT for sure. Yep. And this makes me even see her mental toughness, because she could have tapped out for the whole entire time. But and another thing, this is a whole nother piece, but physiologically, if I'm afraid, think about like a dog that makes me afraid and I freeze, or I walk away, that keeps on our fight or flight. So I'm constantly looking for a way of escape. I'm not looking how to solve the problem. Forward movement, literally just moving towards uncertainty. That's why it's our step 2. Physiologically, I don't have to answer any questions, but I'm just moving toward what freaks me out. It automatically, slowly starts to turn on the rest and digest and shut off. It turns off the perception. So that's pretty awesome. The last piece I want you to just share with you real quick is this. So once she can move toward that uncertainty by coming and being the cheerleader, I promise you it helped her to recover, because if she would have stayed hidden in the room, it would have said that I can't go to the gym. Like, it just going there would have increased her anxiety. So if, let's say she went there 7 times to cheer on her team, 7 times she moved toward uncertainty, and there was 0 stress hormones that triggered her, because she's up laughing, having fun, cheering. So she deprogrammed or desensitized that engine that was turned locked on to fight or flight, which is the sympathetic nervous system. All right. What do you think? Hey, did I freeze? Are you there? I'm not sure what happened here. Why am I frozen? Hello?
Hey, you're still live, but my computer crashed.
Oh, my thing's locked up. It's kind of frozen there a little bit. So you're stuck. You're off too. Okay. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so you're okay. So let me reset this then. So hopefully they can still see me. Oh, okay, good, awesome, thanks. All right, sorry guys. Okay, thanks. Bye. Sorry guys. My thing was frozen there. Okay, now I'm moving to the number 1 screen here. Okay, sorry. I thought I was frozen because it kept recycling, updating. Okay, so these are the issues. Okay, let's pretend you have a kid, and your child is like doesn't want to go to, like, let's say basketball. So you're doing basketball camps this summer. You're like, we're gung ho. We're going to go to basketball this fall, and your kid says, "Hey, I don't like basketball." You can sit down and have a cup of I was gonna say a cup of coffee. Sit down and have a Coke or Gatorade or something with them, and say, okay, so I don't understand. You like basketball? Don't throw money in there. Don't be like, we spent this much money on you. That puts pressure on them. They feel manipulated. Just simply say, okay, you wanted to play basketball. We signed you up. I thought you did good. Tell me what happened, and try to get an idea. Is this social? Like, I don't have any friends. Is this like a resilience thing? And here's the resilience thing. Coaches are mean. They yell at me. Okay, let's break that down. Yell at you like, hey, you suck at basketball. Hey, you're not really good. Or like, you're going to have to run because you're lazy, like that kind of stuff. And they might say, yes. Okay, tell me what happened. If there's any demeaning language at all, those are triggers. Like maybe the kid was bullied, at school or something, or somebody in the bus makes fun of him. Now you have a coach saying those same things. It's not just about the coach now, right? That triggers the trauma, right? And so now that kid is like, basketball stinks because it makes him feel something that's not approachable. It's time to move from basketball. Now I could, argue the other side and be like, well, you have to help them be resilient. You got to push them through. Correct. But not in basketball. Okay. We have to get a spot where you are free from those emotions of trauma. If we can turn those off, then we're okay. And I've worked in the clinic, been doing this 23 years or something, but there's so many people who come in who have absolute talent in the sport, and their parents tell them that you can't quit. You're so good at this. Like, you could get a scholarship in this. It doesn't matter if it's golf or tennis, football, gymnastics, it doesn't matter. And the kids come into me and all I do is ask them a couple questions about trauma. Okay, no, it's not trauma. Then we ask a couple questions about pressure. Tell me where the pressure is. Well, they say I have talent and I'm supposed to be good and I'm supposed to get better, and all these pieces about improving. Oh, there he is.
I'm back.
Let me finish this one point.
Yeah, no, I'm
listening. All these pieces about improving. And so then I say, okay, so that's parent pressure. How much pressure you put on yourself? And then we go back to the goals. And here's what I say. I was like, okay, so you're hitting your goals. You're doing pretty good. And I'll say this. Okay, so let's say you go to, the championship or the tournament or the state. And I'm saying your goal was a state championship or, number one in state or something. Yes. Okay. Let's close your eyes for a second. And I want you to see it. And so we walk through a visual training and I get them there and I watch their physicals. I watch their body and I'll say, okay, you just got it. They announced your name. How's it feel? And you'll see nothing. You'll see literally just like, I don't know. They can't even get past the emotional stuff that they're there, the pressure stuff. So then I back out and I'm like, what do you think you should do? And this is crazy because they're like, well, I've never really done it, but I'd like to start golf or I'd like to start tennis or, like I want to go out for the dance team or something. And I'm like, how much experience do you have? None. Okay, tell me what that looks like. Well, I just want to try out, I guess. I'm going to try something different. Like, I've always dreamed about it as a little kid, but I've been, playing year-round softball for 10 years. And then so I'm like, okay, let's close your eyes. Let's pretend you try out. And let's pretend you make the team. And then when you try out again, you try out for a captain. They don't give you captain, but let's say they give you co-captain. And you'll see them light up like literally like you gave them a gift. And they're just like smiling and they got this little beat to them. And you can see this. It's kind of interesting. And I'm just like, what? And they're like, I don't know. I could just feel that. Like, okay, once they can connect that why that makes them fly over the stress, right? There's no pressure. And so I get these messages from behind the scenes from parents and they'll say, hey, you're really good at what you do. Or, hey, thank you because we never would have seen this before, stuff like that. And I promise you, only because I'm a psychologist, I do this. I mean, as a dad, I didn't want Tyler to quit baseball. As a dad, I didn't want Tavian to quit baseball. Baseball was my baby until 10th grade in football. And Tavian played up a couple years in baseball and was a stud catcher. And I walked through this model with him and he dropped out and started playing year-round soccer. And we took all these trips and he was the happiest kid in the world, but he was dope at baseball. Literally, he was super good, but he didn't like it. And so I want you to think about these pieces just for you, just to put this down into our level. So we check on trauma real quick. It's mostly not trauma for a lot of kids. Most of it's just stress. But if they can't see through the work, it becomes trauma. Yep. And think about this. I have people who will never touch a sport, adults. And I'm like, what do you mean? You don't play anything? No, my dad wrecked me. What do you mean? We had to practice in the rain. We had to practice, all this kind of stuff. And just like, I'm just done. Like, I don't want to do it. That's crazy. Okay. So, all right. So you're back.
I'm back.
Bro,
yeah.
I was like, my little thing window was spinning. So I was like, oh, what happened? And then
so
you were blinking in and out.
The new software we got, it keeps running even though the studio crashed, you run then the studio. So then I just hop back into the studio. Anyways, it's dope. But the charging, it just popped up and saying computers no longer charging, and then just went and shut down.
So, that's okay. We didn't problem solve that. We haven't troubleshooted it. So
I hopped on Facebook and you're like sitting there just looking at the camera. So I called you. I'm like, bro, you're still on.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to look at how to reset it, just refresh, because it was just the little icon, little window was moving.
No, there's comments here. It's like, okay, check this out. Look at this. Okay, watch this. Boom. You see that? At least he said Tyler's gone.
Okay.
Dan said, I can still hear you, Dr. Sanchez.
That's awesome.
Okay, we're like professional. Okay, here.
Yeah, I didn't. Comments. That's why I had my phone, because I was trying to get on the Facebook to see the comments. Like, did I crash? Yep.
Okay, so here's a long statement. It says, good information and examples on levels of trauma. I went to the doctor's office many times several months ago. I did lots of blood test scans, even an endoscopy, and they couldn't find anything wrong with me. Dr. Sanchez does a great job explaining things to where I can understand every word. They can't find anything wrong with me at the doctor's. Turns out it was depression and anxiety. Didn't know the symptoms I had was related to depression and anxiety.
Hey, Karen, thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. That's awesome. But you still got to, now that you have that knowledge, now you got to do the work. Like, I want you to just know, like, you'll be your own best coach by just researching some things and then just grabbing the pieces that resonate with you and just move, like exercise or meditation or tennis or yoga or whatever the thing is that you do that moves through that. So awesome.
Shout out Hunter Wise. I saw you were live, so I came on.
What's up, Hunter?
Comment. Look at this. I got access to everything.
Dude, that's awesome.
Good stuff.
This is awesome.
The wife said Tyler's gone. Okay. Adam has a comment here. Let's talk about this. Says, for me, the hardest part is being in it and others not or don't understand how or why I could be feeling this way. I think he's talking about depression and anxiety.
Okay. Yeah.
I suffer from depression, and most days are great. And every now and again, them bad days creep in. I think at least a lot of students I talk to, and you obviously talk to way more than them. But to me, a lot of the people don't, and we've talked about this on our depression podcast a while ago, but acute anxiety and depression, situational anxiety is what a lot of people feel. That I have this super stressful moment. I feel the weight of the world. Adam, that's a different situation that comes and goes based on no outward circumstances. And that type of depression and anxiety is something I've never dealt with. And so it's a hard, you stated it. People don't really understand it if you've never been in it. And that's something I don't understand because I've never had a day where I just wake up and don't want to get out of bed. But I don't know if you got a takeaway for him or someone else.
Yeah. Okay.
So for that, just doom and gloom for no reason.
So let's hit that one right there. So that's actual depression. So depression, so you don't understand, people don't understand that this actually literally causes physiological symptoms. So let's talk about some physical symptoms from the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve, remember, resonates like there's strangers or trouble in the environment. So the real issue is psychological safety. Do you feel safe? And it's not like, well, I'm going to get bit by a dog or a shark's going to bite me or something like that, or I'm going to fall and crack my head. There's just this emotional, like, I don't feel safe, or something feels weird, or today I just feel off, like that kind of stuff. Okay. So the vagus nerve sends the signals, and you get gut problems, digestive problems, IBS, hypertension. So you actually can't go number 2. You get constipation issues.
Oh, there it is.
Yep. Again, I didn't mean that one on purpose. That was an accident.
No,
yeah. And then, so what that happens is it makes your body feel like you're in trouble, like something's wrong. So you walk around all day and you're like, man, I just feel off. Man, I just feel off. Like I just can't get going. So the best thing for you to do is think about this. Like, is it better for you to do a low and slow workout? Like you're just going to get on the bike and you're just going to ride around the neighborhood for, 15, 20 minutes, or you're going to just go outside and take a walk. And you're just going to take a walk. What I've helped a lot of people do is the concept of green therapy. We have it's called 12-2 Outdoors. It's a nonprofit company where we take people out in the woods and we shoot bows, and we teach them how to breathe and how to rest and digest. So what I'd suggest is find a grassy tree area, so green space. Grab a blanket if you like to lay down, or grab a chair, lawn chair, and just go sit up there. Like it's very relaxing to sit in a chair in a bunch of green space, or sit on the ground and just literally focus on breathing. So like 15 minutes on breathing. You can put your hand on your belly and just breathe, and just notice, like, when does your breathing become natural and zero effort, and it's just kind of feels like it's happening naturally. That's when you start to feel rest and digest. Another thing you can do is put your hand on your heart and just feel your heartbeat. Just putting your mind to give energy toward the heart, you start to connect. So it becomes this full touch thing. And so those are some pieces that you can do that just helps you to rest and digest. Now, for a lot of people, it's like anticipatory anxiety that Tyler was talking about. So like anytime you go to somewhere new, your heart rate's going to be up. It's going to be stressful. It's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel weird. Lately people have been asking me to join their podcast, and just being God honest, like my first impression, I tell Stacy, I'm like, I'll call him and see what, we can get going. And then she's like, should I tell him your schedule's packed, or do you want me to work it in? And I go, I'm packed. And then she's like, seriously? And like, I'll fine, work it in. And then she's like, seriously? She doesn't push me one way or the other. She just keeps asking me the question. And then I know it's good for me. So I'm like, okay, fine. Just because I don't know what it's going to be. Like I run really hot. Like I'll be sweating if it's like 72 degrees. I'll be sweating like I'm balling out. So I get nervous about like, oh man, it's going to be a hot office. Like, are they going to camera right up on my face? Like what kind of questions are going to be asked me? I get nervous like that too. But I just tell myself, I'm like, hey, take a deep breath. It's novel. It's brand new. You'll feel comfortable in 15 minutes. Just chill. And it works for me. So I can walk through it pretty quick.
Yeah, we got a couple good comments here. So I'm gonna throw them up there again.
Yep.
Bridget says, in one word, your partner says to you triggers your own trauma. You are fighting your past, your current self, and then start fighting your partner.
Okay, so your husband tells
That's a
you,
whole that's like our hyperlink idea.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
another show too.
So this is the hyperlink idea. So, long story short, like a long time ago, we were having avocate, like guacamole, and I made some and set it on the Tyler was like 12. And I'm like, all right, who writes to eat? And Tyler comes over and sees what it is, and he goes, "Ooh, I don't know how you people like that." Okay. Now Tyler meant you people, quote, people who love, guacamole, right? Because I was raised by Native American, and he used to get so ticked about Mexicans taking jobs, and he'd be like, "You shouldn't be coming to this country," and stuff like that. And he'd get fired from a job or get laid off, and he'd come home and smack me around, beat me up, and he'd call me all kinds of dirty names about being Mexican. And then he would be like, "Effing you people ruined my life. You people steal our jobs. Effing you people, you people, you people," right? And this is how trauma works. Like, so Tyler comes in the room. Hey, buddy, check out what we're eating. You want some? And he's like, "What are you eating?" He comes over, grabs a chip, looks at it, and he goes, "Ew, I don't know how you people like that." And I came unglued. Like, that's one of the, few times I grabbed Tyler and like, pinned him against the wall and kind of lost my cool. Stacey had to cool me down.
Yeah, but it brought you to a past fight.
It brought me to a past fight with George. So like that stuff was like, holy buckets. Like, what just happened? And Stacey's like, "You need to go on a run." So I would go run 5 miles or whatever to get all that steam out to kind of let go of it. Okay. So Tyler had no idea that the word "you people," like people who like guacamole, right? And I'm thinking you people like you quote unquote wetbacks who sneak into our country and steal our jobs. Okay. And so I was triggered and I came at Tyler and he had no idea. And by the way, at that point, I didn't really know what that was. And I talked to Stacy and she's like, "What is wrong with you? You need to ask for forgiveness. Like, you should need to go to prayer. You need to go to inner healing." And I was like, "Dude, I had no idea. I just, And so, okay, so back to Bridget's question. So when your husband triggers you, you have to let him know what that word is. Like, I'd say, "Hey, Tyler, just so you know, I'm sorry, but you people, that makes me think like I'm a dirty Mexican and I shouldn't be in this country, even though I was born in this country because of my past, because of people who, beat me up and told me like that's how it is, that's what this country's made of, right?"
Yeah.
So I have to tell them like, "Hey, stay away from that word, please," right? Okay. If he doesn't and he triggers you on purpose, then you have to just walk away because you'll come unglued and then it'll take you somewhere. So once I'm triggered, so me and Tyler are here. Tyler calls me, says this thing to me, and I mentally take off and I'm fighting a different situation in the 70s. And I'm taking that mindset, that fight or flight mindset, and that fight or flight mindset carries me away to fight Tyler. So I don't even know that like that's my headspace, but it was. Okay. And so if you don't get away, you're going to hurt somebody. Okay. But now I get away. And here's the crazy thing. Most people get away and say, "I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to process it." One of the things that made Simone start to fall apart is in the very beginning, people said, "Hey, what happened? Hey, what's going on?" And she's like, "I don't know, but I'll fix it. I don't know, but she just kept saying, I don't know. Hey, when are you going to come back? I don't know. I'll take it day by day." So she was kind of pushing off that processing. If you push off that processing, you keep on the fight or flight. You have to process. If not with the media, if not with your husband, if not with your son, then grab somebody else. And thankfully, I had Stacey.
And right? Who knows who said, maybe someone said something to Simone right before she walked on for that day's competition, or a reporter said something about being a survivor, or I pulled a couple quotes of people that from Instagram and I just screenshotted them. So Jules Amen, another gymnast, said, "I can't stop thinking about how Simone Biles said that part of why she didn't retire is because she was worried if she did, as the only survivor from the Larry Nassar abuse, who is still an active gymnast, it would leave an accountability issue for USAG less likely."
Yes, correct.
So not only was she the only survivor, but then she felt, if I get out of here, man, who's going to still speak up as one of the only people to speak up? Another thing she quoted was another person that I found was crazy. It says, "Simone Biles is a person, not a strategy. Where's the grace?" So that goes back to the only African American, for all the ladies, the alumni, or as a survivor. Another one was that she had to train for another year. She was supposed to be last year's Olympics.
Yes.
In the prelims, I quoted this too. She said after the prelims, prelims now to prepare for the finals. She says, "It wasn't an easy day or my best, but I got through it." Like
Correct.
already she's letting you know, man, I was struggling today. Truly do feel like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders at times. I know I brush it off and make it seem like pressure doesn't affect me, but dang, sometimes it's really hard. The Olympics is no joke, but I'm happy my family was able to be with me virtually. They mean the world to me. And me and Alicia discussed this. Like, can you imagine the pressure of being there? And for every competition up until these last 6 months to a year, their family's there. You can see them. You can talk to them afterwards. And now you're not only going to Japan by yourself, you're in the place by yourself. You can only talk to the 4 or 5 people you're there, and your family's not in there. You're trying to talk to them via Skype or Zoom or FaceTime, but the time change is different. So, I mean, it's so much on that they've never faced and didn't prepare for.
Correct.
The unknown. They prepared she prepared for Olympics normal,
right?
Not the Olympics this way.
Right. And the other thing too,
I was just gonna say, if you talk to LeBron talking about when he won the NBA finals in last year in the bubble, it was a whole nother aspect of pressure.
Yes.
Some people say an asterisk by it, but if you talk to anyone that was in the bubble, they say like 2 asterisks, make it's almost harder to win. It was harder to win in the bubble than not. And so everyone's like, well, she prepared for this. When she really didn't though. She prepared for normal Olympics, normal competition.
Correct.
Not the way it's being run right now.
And anybody who has any form of past trauma will tell you that the worst part is when they lay in bed ready to fall asleep because they're left to their own thoughts and they can't move. If you can't move, you can't fix it, right? If you can't move, you're just stuck. And then all of a sudden you just have this barrage of thoughts. So you have to also imagine last time she had her team and it hadn't come out, everyone was quiet, right? Right after the Olympics, it broke. Okay. And it broke actually because they realized that USGA like paid somebody who got cut out of the Olympics right at the last second.
Yeah.
And if you go watch that Athlete A, you'll see all the details. And so Simone's back in the Olympics where, that doctor was down on the mat kind of helping out. He's down there helping people. He's down there making adjustments and doing whatever. And so there's a lot of trauma just walking back and forth and just thinking about that stuff. And even if she didn't say it, it's there. She's got to put it in the back of her mind.
Well, and the trust issue of like, okay, so he did it. Is there another person that's now in his role?
Right.
No offense, whoever that is, but are they going to do it?
Correct.
And who's going to say? And if all those hundreds of girls never spoke up, how many more years would it go on with this person?
Right.
And they're not going to speak up either.
Right. And from the standpoint of just like this, we've talked about this before, but how do you heal an emotional wound? Or forget about the deep trauma, just an emotional wound. Like you yelled and said a bad name to a kid or something. How do you heal it? You validate their feelings. You get on their level. You let them share everything, even if they say you're a mean daddy and sometimes I don't want to be here with you. You let them express everything free of charge. Right. And then in the end, you'll say anything else. And they'll say no. And you'll say, okay, I'm very sorry. Can I have a hug? Can you forgive me? And that's the open door to let them express. Okay. Now think about this. If you're in a good vagus nerve space, right? You experience something, you process it, you express it or share it or talk about it, and then you get feedback. And once you get feedback, you kind of know you're in the right where. Because if I tell you a story like, ooh, that's pretty dope, dude. Good job. I already know I'm in the right space. Yep. But when I tell somebody something like, hey, you were mean to me and you said this to me and you said this to me, and somebody says, oh, get over it. It's just words. Now there's no validation. So I'm stuffing like every time I try to talk about it, now I'm just going to put it away. So no, you can't make somebody resilient when they're complaining about emotional wounds. You have to actually accept them and validate, and then you circle up and you go back to practice.
Yeah.
Right.
And at like Adam said, and not to call out Adam, but like he said, some days I wake up and I don't feel like that. What if that was that day? Like as an unfortunate as it is, it happened on the worst day it could possibly happen. It's like some of these athletes haven't got coronavirus for a year and a half, and they happen to get it the 1 week they go to the Olympics. Like how unfortunate is that? That's just sometimes chance happening. That's the way the cookie crumbles. Alicia said that, dude, I love this feature. I feel like I'm like a DJ producer. I'm up here just changing and making moves.
You're the real MC now, baby.
No, come on. Alicia says, went away. Oh, there it is. 100%. I have lived out the vagus nerve stuff. When I am sick with a stomach bug, my body's reaction is to flight by passing out. Super scary at first, but now that we know that we are able to fight it more, but I understand how Simone didn't trust herself, because when I get in those sickness episodes, I feel that way.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I've seen Alicia in that mode. And can you imagine, like, if she had one of those, plus she felt with the doom and gloom, and then she has to go up there and do a 2.5 flips by sprinting and running down? I mean,
yeah, this is what I'm saying.
makes no sense.
She checked out at the right time because she knew she didn't trust herself.
Well,
Otherwise,
that's what she was quoted by saying, for the benefit of the team,
yes,
I need to move.
yes,
I'm
for
gonna
all
get
those
a I'm
reasons,
gonna
she
get a
did the right
2.
thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Absolutely,
get a
100%.
5 on the. I'm not gonna score when there's girls here that could
Yes.
do 13s and 14s.
Yeah, right.
Let them fight for silver.
Right.
Adams, in response to yours, says that's exactly that's it exactly. I will feel unsafe or
Yes,
uneasy.
sir.
Funny you mentioned a grassy or outdoor area being in Florida. Our Youth for Christ camps, our wilderness camps, camping trips, and I have come to the knowledge that being outdoors in the wilderness brings me peace.
Yes.
Wow, I didn't know the two were correlated.
Yes. Google green therapy. You'll get it.
That's why we hunt.
That's why we hunt. That's why we go out and shoot
you
bows.
listening? It's for my
Yes.
mentals. I need to sit in the
for my
tree
mentals.
stand for my mental capability to be a better father, to be a better
Yes.
husband to you.
Yes.
That's why I need to golf this
That's
weekend.
That's why I named my tree where my tree stand is doctor. And I'll just on my calendar it's a doctor appointment. And Stacy's like, where are you at? I'm like, I'm gonna check on my doctor real quick.
Here's a good one. And says sometimes I get anxiety over little things, but my mom doesn't understand why I get anxious, but I don't know how to explain it to her. Instead of specifically talking about her and her mom, how do you put into words to someone that maybe doesn't really understand?
I would just say, go and sit down and watch this podcast together. You personally take notes about like, okay, see that point, this is me, and don't talk about it while it's playing. Just let it play, let the whole thing play out, and then at the end, you have 3 or 4 points. You say, okay, these are the pieces that I have, like that podcast talks about, and this is why I have what I have. And so, and then you talk about a solution, like what do you personally need for your mom to do to help you, or what do I personally need to do as a dad to help Valencia? And so those are the pieces that are really important.
Also go back. Oh, go ahead.
I would say that's the real pieces that are really important because how I heal my daughter will be different from how you heal Stella or how Corinne's mom will heal her by just listening and saying, okay, I didn't understand that. Explain it to me. What do you want me to do?
We also have another mental health show or another mental health podcast on the YouTube. We also have a depression and then an anxiety one too.
Yes.
So I'll go back and watch those as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you got?
So the last piece,
the
last piece is this. It was super, super cool. Okay. So I was first aware of this back in high school when Darryl Strawberry, he played center field for the Mets. They won a world championship. I loved him because he could run down anything and he made everything look easy. He's the dog that taught me like to get an extra 4 inches. So he puts his glove on real high and ties it way up here. And his whole palm is hanging out the glove. Remember I showed you that, Ty? That comes from Darryl Strawberry. Okay. And he was,
my coach told me not to do it though, but anyways,
bro, I'm telling you, I robbed so many people. They just want to beat me up after, just robbing dogs in center field. But here's the thing. He retired, right? And then those guys who hit the top of the world, they retire and they fall back on the skill set. Well, what if your skill set is like, being a cab driver? What if your skill set's like, delivering pizzas and stuff, right? They fall from grace kind of, and then they become drug addicts and they fall apart in society. And it's hard for everybody else to understand, how can this guy go from greatness to do this? Well, it's a whole different field of play. Like we're talking baseball and then like maybe financial, wisdom or something, financial literacy. And so I started paying attention to like, why are there all these big athletes? Why do they have these, like suicide attempts? Why do they have divorce and stuff? Why do they have mental illness? And a lot of it's head injury, but a lot of it also is they just never have dealt with early childhood trauma. They've never dealt with it. So they just kind of just push through sports to get mentally tough and resilient and push through. And then when all that movement stops, they're not moving anymore. They don't working out anymore. They put on 30 pounds, they're just walking around. You wouldn't recognize them and they do stupid stuff. Okay. So has to be an identity transition when people are ready to retire. And you have to actually know how you're going to reboot your next climb, because if you don't, that plateau after you're retired just gets stuck there and 10 years go by and you have no idea what happened. Here's the coolest thing about this whole process. After Simone, didn't go and the team won the silver medal, and when the all around, I think it was, or whatever, she posted, she's so happy for her team and stuff like this. And she said, thank you to all you supporters. She didn't even address the haters. And she said, for the first time in my life, I feel like I know who I am. And I finally know I'm more than my gymnastics accolades. boom, that's exactly what it's it. So we always talk about the what moment, the what moment, the what's awesome moment. Okay. We always talk about that. Wah, 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 wah. Yeah, exactly. So we need that because that's so important. So listen to this. Like if she does retire, she knows that she's more than an athlete. She knows that she's more than just the Olympic GOAT, because if she knows she's more as a human, as a person, as just Simone, like then she can move into the next climb for her, the next chapter in her book that she's writing by living out each day of her life. Otherwise, she would have cracked and crashed and had all these mental illness issues, and nobody would have been able to listen to her because she has to like fall from grace. So now she emotionally fell, and now she got back up and finished, but she also found the gold nugget, which is how to transition from greatness, right? And that's to reboot your identity and find that why that makes you fly for your next climb.
I think that's probably one of the craziest things is that she came back, number one, out to the floor.
Yes.
I mean, if I'm quitting, if you just think about, let's just say, getting mad in any game we've ever played as a family, Monopoly. Right. Let's say I leave, I yell and scream at you, and then I leave and say, I'm done with this stupid game, and I walk into the other room. There, in that setting, I'm not coming back to the board and going, all right, you know what? I'm going to sit and watch you guys finish this out.
I got to go run. I got to go.
I'm not leaving my room. Correct. Let alone, coming back to a game that you just quit. Or, I when I got bumped off a horse one time riding it, it took everything to get back on the horse. I mean, little things like that. She came back not only to the floor to support, but to the thousands of cameras, to live television, to being streamed on multiple platforms all over the next 2 days. Then to come back, which would be this morning, they played in primetime today, back to the beam to go back out and do that.
Yes.
I can't fathom that as a person, let alone as an Olympic athlete.
Yeah. And it's not just her. You'll see gymnasts who in, let's say, the team round scored really, really high on the vault. Oh, then all of a sudden on the vault, so there's giving out medals for the vault, you'll see them crack. So they can't, even though it's like they've done it a million times, it's so hard under that pressure to do it under that stage at that level with same score. Right? They ebb and flow, and that's just the human nature. It's no different. LeBron can go drop 55, and the next day he drops 20. And everybody's like, "Oh, what happened?" He's like, "Hey, I just tried. This is what it is." But here's this in a nutshell. So, okay, is it okay to quit? The answer is yes, under trauma or under significant mental stress. Okay, then what's next? Okay, the goal of still get back up on the horse, as you just said, Ty, that still wins, but there can be a break in there. You don't have to get back on the horse immediately, but you can if you can go, because that fixes it quick. If you can't, take a break, go through some training, right? Get some mental training or whatever, take some time to rest and digest, find some green therapy, go on a run, have somebody in therapy work you through a model to help you let go of wherever the trauma pieces are, and then slowly move toward that horse again and get back up on the horse, right? Yep. Because then from there, you can say, okay, I defeated the horse. I'm no longer afraid of it. I'm not going to keep doing this horse riding thing. I don't like it. Okay, let's reboot. What do you want to do? All right.
Okay. Last comment, just because it's a good one.
Okay.
Let's see if I can pull it out here. We've talked about this multiple times. We don't really have an option or a plan yet, but this is a great time to bring this up.
Okay.
Karen said, is there like a summary of each podcast that we can print and save to reflect back on good information to pass on to others? Dad?
Yeah, great question. I'm working on it. Yes. I have talked to my coach, because I have a coach, about how we take the podcast and put it into pamphlets, booklets. So we're working on that system. There's some software out there we can do. We can also hire like a virtual assistant kind of person to help us out. So we're moving to that direction. So thank you for bringing that up, because that hopefully will be available soon.
Available soon as in?
Hopefully before the end of 2021. Like
that soon?
Soon, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm starting, went from crawling to walking, and now I'm like, walking's too slow. So now I'm looking like that old man who's walking like he's late for a meeting.
Right. Let me troll the comments here. I think that's it. So, I mean, this has been a W podcast, number one, W software. Yes. Shout out to StreamYard. This is the new way we are going to run our podcast moving forward.
Yes.
So hopefully this is something we can get used to and comfortable. Also, this is being streamed on YouTube as well. So if you cannot get onto Facebook or someone only has YouTube, send them to that as well. And any other thoughts, takeaways? We kind of summed up everything.
I think we're good. I think we're good. Simone is still the GOAT. And don't forget to think about, and you just say a prayer when you think about it for Simone and for Naomi Osaka, because they carry the load of tremendous pressure that don't need to be marginalized about. So,
I actually watched a little documentary. You can watch it on the NBC Olympic Sports app of Michael Phelps talking about how many Olympic athletes deal with depression and anxiety and self-worth after the Olympics. They're the stars and they don't become the stars again for another 4 years.
Yes,
and
correct.
then a lot of them have 2 to 3, 5, 15, 20 people fighting for that job that they might do one Olympics for the rest of their life. And so they have trained their whole life for 30 seconds or 5 minutes. Yeah. And then they go, like you said, and us having our relationship with Jesus, we understand that our self-worth is not in what we do, but it's because Jesus died on the cross for our sins. And that goes with anything. Empty nesters, parents. I mean, you don't have to be an Olympian to figure out and to strive for that. High school athletes, college athletes, businessmen, stay-at-home moms, working moms. Yes. Anytime we put our identity in something that we do or something that we accomplish, if that is ever taken away, it's detrimental to our well-being. So
yes, that's
my takeaway.
Yes,
Sweet.
Perfect.
All right. Well, don't forget, there's 2 times to be great: when you feel like it and when you don't.
Amen.
Tune in next week. Do you got the topic? I think we have it, but I forgot it.
We did. What did we talk about?
I don't know. I just remember we had it picked out. It'll be so good. It'll be perfect. Just 2 weeks. We'll see you there. It's be the best topic in the whole entire world. So
yeah, I don't remember. We talked. Yes, correct. We got it set up.
We have it.
So we're ready.
We have their notes up. I just don't remember what it is.
Yeah, correct.
All right, perfect. Well, peace out. We love y'all.
All right, peace.
To realize what's inside of me. For all of the people that lied to me. For all of the people that said I would fall off. Oh, boy, what a time to be alive. I wrote this for everyone, feel like they counted out. You need to look in the mirror and tell yourself it's time to be who I am now. Greatness.